She was Ankhsu-Namun, the stunning and elegant wife of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. She possessed a graceful, captivating beauty that drew every eye. The pharaoh forbade anyone from touching her. To ensure this, he had her entire body covered in unique ceremonial body paint. However, during a secret affair with the high priest Imhotep, he accidentally smudged the painted patterns on Ankhsu-Namun's arm. At that exact moment, the pharaoh suddenly returned to the palace. Although Imhotep managed to hide in time, the disturbed markings on her arm caught the pharaoh's attention. With no way out, the two joined forces and ended the pharaoh's life. Her screams drew the palace guards. To give Imhotep time to escape, Ankhsu-Namun chose to end her own life. Determined to bring his beloved back, Imhotep defied sacred law and broke into the royal tomb. He stole the forbidden Book of the Dead. The book recorded rituals that could summon souls and restore life. As the incantation echoed, the dark pool before the altar began to churn. A soul gradually formed and drifted toward Ankhsu-Namun's body. But just as the ritual was about to succeed, tomb guards arrived and interrupted it. After crossing the boundary between life and death, Ankhsu-Namun was lost once again. This time, Imhotep's crime was unforgivable. Everyone involved was punished and transformed into mummies. As the mastermind, Imhotep was sentenced to the most feared punishment in ancient Egypt. This penalty was so severe that it had never been carried out before. His tongue was removed, his body wrapped in cloth and sealed inside a stone coffin. Countless flesh-eating scarabs were poured inside with him. Unable to speak, Imhotep could only cry out in endless terror. The punishment was forbidden not only for its cruelty. It was believed that those subjected to it would never find peace in the afterlife. If ever released, they would bring disaster upon the world. So he was buried deep underground. A statue of Anubis was placed above him to seal him away forever. Time passed, and centuries turned into millennia. The key to the tomb was eventually lost to the world. A scholar named Evelyn managed to decipher its secrets. She discovered a map leading to the legendary city of the dead. Archaeology had always been Evelyn's dream, and she was eager to go. But the map was accidentally burned by the librarian. Left with no choice, Evelyn set out with her brother Jonathan. They tracked down Rick, the former owner of the key. Rick claimed he found it in the city of the dead, but he was driven out by local tribes and barely survived. To return there, they first had to rescue him. Rick was scheduled to be executed by hanging. In desperation, Evelyn told the warden that Rick knew the location of the pharaoh's tomb. Rumors said it held immeasurable treasure. The warden immediately ordered Rick's release. In exchange, he insisted on joining the expedition. After a long and difficult journey, they finally arrived. But they were not the only ones to find the place. Rick's old friend Benny arrived at the same time. As the sun rose, the vast burial grounds appeared before them. Everyone rushed forward without hesitation. Beside the statue of Anubis, Evelyn examined a set of reflective mirrors. Based on her judgment, they would soon be useful. Sure enough, once inside the ancient underground city, the reflections broke the darkness. Before long, the two groups crossed paths again. Another conflict would have been foolish. They agreed to split up and search separately. While planning their route, aboard Jonathan started swinging a golf club. A stone coffin suddenly dropped from the ceiling. At the same time, the warden discovered strange blue gold nearby. Its value was clearly immense, but danger followed closely. One piece began to move after hitting the ground. A scarab emerged and burrowed into his boot. The pain overwhelmed him as it crawled upward. Unable to endure it, he slammed into a wall and died instantly. The others were confused, but the expedition continued. Evelyn noticed familiar grooves on the coffin. She quickly took out the key. Jonathan eagerly turned the mechanism. The moment the coffin opened, a mummy sprang out. Strangely, the body looked remarkably preserved. Scratches inside the lid showed the person had been sealed and alive. Elsewhere, Benny's group tampered with ancient symbols. A burst of corrosive fluid erupted, instantly claiming several lives. Yet they still found a hidden chest. When it was uncovered, a cold wind swept through the chamber. The archaeologist warned that opening it meant certain doom. Terrified, Benny ran away. The others ignored the warning and opened it anyway. Inside was a black book. The archaeologist recognized it immediately. It was the legendary Book of the Dead, but it was sealed by a mechanism and could not be opened. Evelyn noticed a familiar slot beneath it. Late that night, she secretly took the book. The slot matched the coffin perfectly. As the book opened, the same chilling wind returned. Evelyn began reading the ancient text aloud. Unknowingly, she recited the spell of resurrection. The mummy sealed long ago was Imhotep. Moments later, a massive swarm of locusts filled the air. Panic sent everyone fleeing underground. Imhotep had returned. He drained the senses of one explorer to regain sight and speech. Elsewhere, Rick's group encountered scarabs and barely escaped. They thought they were safe, but danger followed them back. One man slipped and lost his life instantly. Evelyn stumbled backward and triggered a hidden mechanism. She fell directly into Imhotep's chamber. Imhotep mistook her for his long-lost love, Anck-su-namun. At the last second, Rick arrived and saved her. Imhotep roared in fury. Rick fired without hesitation, knocking him down. But moments later, the mummy stood up again unharmed. Imhotep later encountered a lone Beni. Beni tried multiple languages in panic. Only when he spoke ancient Egyptian did Imhotep finally understand him. Rick and his group flee the tomb without stopping for a second. They think they're finally safe. But to their horror, the mummy follows them out. Beni reveals that the companion whose eyes were gouged out was one of the 4 people who opened the Book of the Dead. There were 4 box openers in total. As long as the mummy consumes the flesh and blood of all 4, it can fully restore its body. Suddenly, fire rains down from the sky. Ominous signs appear everywhere, an unmistakable omen of world-ending disaster. Amid the chaos, screams echo through the air. Rick takes Evelyn to investigate, only to find a completely dried-out corpse. Nearby, Imhotep, having consumed human flesh, begins to regain his physical form. Rick immediately fires several shots at him. At that moment, Imhotep notices Evelyn. Just as he leans in to kiss her, a cat suddenly meows nearby. The sound terrifies the mummy. He instantly transforms into sand and escapes. According to Ardith, cats are guardians of the underworld. As long as the mummy hasn't fully regained human form, cats are his greatest weakness. The reason he keeps pursuing Evelyn is likely to use her as a sacrifice to resurrect Anck-su-namun. If Imhotep fully revives, the entire world could be plunged into darkness. The most urgent task now is to find a way to destroy him. But for safety reasons, Evelyn must be protected first. Rick goes to confront Beni. But Beni is just a low-level follower and knows very little. Suddenly, a scream comes from downstairs. Taking advantage of Rick's distraction, Beni jumps out the window and escapes. Rick looks outside, only to see that the archaeologist who previously obtained the Book of the Dead has also been drained into a corpse. The book has now fallen into Imhotep's hands. Not only does this restore more of his body, but some of his powers return as well. He can even use the scarab curse. Anyone infected by the insects becomes his puppet. Meanwhile, the other 2 box openers guarding Evelyn grow impatient. One of them decides to go downstairs to buy coffee. The moment he leaves, a wave of sand blows in through the window. The remaining guard is instantly drained into a dry corpse. The mummy is now close to complete restoration. He turns his gaze toward the next room. Then he transforms into fine sand and slips through the keyhole. Evelyn is still asleep, completely unaware that Imhotep has targeted her. Fortunately, Rick returns in time, this time with a cat. At the sight of the cat, the mummy panics in terror. He immediately turns into sand and flees again. Imhotep then controls the city's civilians, blocking the entrance to the museum. Inside the museum, Evelyn discovers from an ancient Egyptian stone tablet that the forbidden texts consist of 2 opposing books. Besides the Book of the Dead, there is also the Book of the Living, which counters it. Only this book can defeat Imhotep, who was resurrected by the Book of the Dead. Without hesitation, they escape through the back entrance and drive away. Once again, they head toward the pharaoh's tomb to find the Book of the Living, but the enemy forces are overwhelming. They are stopped again before getting far and have no choice but to force their way through. In the chaos, the last box opener is dragged away by the puppets. This completes the final missing piece of Imhotep's body. Rick and the others ultimately fail to escape the encirclement. The mummy is now fully restored. He becomes Imhotep in his complete form, fully resurrected. At this point, even cats are no longer effective. As long as Evelyn is captured, Imhotep can perform the ritual again to revive Anck-su-namun. For the sake of the others, Evelyn chooses to surrender herself. She hopes to buy them a chance to survive. But Imhotep breaks his promise. The moment he leaves, he orders his puppets to kill everyone. Luckily, Rick notices a sewer beneath them. He opens the manhole and directs everyone to escape. Artist sacrifices himself to delay the enemy, falling among the puppets. Now wielding his full 1,000-year power, Imhotep turns into sand. He captures both Benny and Evelyn. Rick and the others are too slow by car. So Rick seeks help from his old friend Winston. They pursue Imhotep in Winston's private plane, but as soon as they approach the tomb, Imhotep detects them. He manipulates the ground, sending massive waves of sand skyward. Like a sand tsunami, it surges toward the plane. The sand forms a gigantic face in the sky. Under Imhotep's control, it opens its massive jaws. The plane is swallowed whole. To save Rick and the others, Evelyn forces herself to kiss Imhotep despite her revulsion. The move works. The plane crashes shakily into the sand dunes. Imhotep doesn't pursue, instead rushing Evelyn toward the tomb. Meanwhile, Rick and his group enter the tomb. Jonathan notices a blue-gold scarab beetle on the wall. He pries one off, delighted by his find. But the next second, the beetle comes alive. It burrows into his arm in an instant. Rick tears open his sleeve. He uses a knife to dig the beetle out, saving Jonathan's life. However, the gunshot draws Imhotep's attention. He grabs a handful of dust and blows gently. Suddenly, the carved figures on the wall come to life. Elsewhere, Rick and the others stumble into a chamber filled with burial treasures. Gold is piled everywhere. Just as they stand frozen in shock, noises echo behind them. Mummies resurrected by Imhotep rise from the ground. They immediately open fire. Under heavy gunfire, the mummies are torn apart. But they are undead. Even with missing limbs, they keep attacking relentlessly. Fighting and retreating, they finally reach the statue of the sun god. The Book of the Living lies beneath it. One teammate volunteers to draw enemy fire to buy time. Evelyn's earlier deduction proves correct. The book is indeed there. At the same time, Evelyn wakes up. She's immediately terrified by the rats crawling over her. Even worse, a mummy lies sleeping beside her. Moments later, Imhotep ascends the altar holding the Book of the Dead. As he chants spell after spell, the soul of Anck-su-namun is pulled back from the underworld once more. The resurrection ritual is nearly complete. Suddenly, Jonathan bursts in, distracting Imhotep with the Book of the Living. Rick charges the altar wielding a golden sword. Jonathan recites the spell written on the book's cover. Instantly, two fully armored guardian warriors march forward in perfect formation. After they take position, Jonathan realizes he doesn't know the rest of the spell. Imhotep immediately issues a kill command in ancient Egyptian. The guardians charge straight at Rick. Rick turns and runs as they chase relentlessly behind him. Meanwhile, Anck-su-namun's body is almost fully restored, only the sacrifice remains. Evelyn is on the brink of death. She has Jonathan describe the unknown symbols while she interprets them. Rick is cornered by a horde of mummies. With no choice left, he fights desperately, but he is completely overwhelmed. At the final moment, Jonathan finally recites the next spell under Evelyn's guidance. Rick narrowly escapes death. The Guardians reform their formation. They then launch a fierce assault on Anck-su-namun. She dies for the third time. Imhotep completely loses control. He unleashes his fury on Rick. Blinded by rage, he fails to notice Evelyn opening the Book of the Living. Just as Rick is about to be devoured, Evelyn finds the spell meant specifically for Imhotep. The moment she finishes, the chariots of the underworld race in. They pass through Imhotep's body, dragging his magical soul back to the underworld. Although he doesn't die instantly, his 1,000 years of power are completely stripped away. He feels pain for the first time in centuries. He falls into the black pool beneath the altar. Moments later, he dissolves into nothing. Elsewhere, the traitor Benny takes advantage of the chaos to steal treasure. Exhausted, he hangs 2 bags of gold on a protruding pillar to rest. But the pillar turns out to be the tomb's sealing mechanism. Stone doors begin closing one by one. Realizing something is wrong, Rick and the others sprint for the exit. In the process, they accidentally leave the Book of the Living behind. By the time Benny realizes what's happening, it's too late. At least he gets his wish. Surrounded by mountains of gold and a room full of scarabs. Rick and the others escape the tomb. They watch as the entire pharaoh's tomb is swallowed by sand. Before they can react, a giant hand suddenly grabs them. It's Ardith, the same man who earlier lured Imhotep away. He survived. After a brief farewell, Rick and the siblings mount camels and head home. What they don't know is that one camel is carrying the 2 bags of gold Benny stole. And so a legendary adventure comes to a perfect end.